Her girlfriend broke up with her and now they are best friends. Nothing can go wrong. We start the story with Frances and Bobbi, who are best friends and ex-girlfriends. Can you be friends with your ex-girlfriend and have it work out? We'll see. Now they are friends, best friends, pinky friends. Anyway, after hanging out with her best friend, Frances goes about her day, goes to the library, studying, all is good. She takes her final exams at the university and is now a free elf, free to hang out with her best friend Bobbi. Very suspicious. They do everything together, they even go out to flirt together. That night at a bar, Bobbi meets Melissa, a writer who wrote a book she thought was bad, really bad. But since she's hot, she immediately exchanges numbers with her to talk about poetry. As soon as she gets home, Frances, being the best friend, not at all jealous that she is, starts investigating this Melissa and discovers that she is married to a guy named Nick, and she immediately warns Bobbi, as a friend. But while that's not the point now, the girls are on vacation, a little trip to the beach, a little outing there, and a visit to Melissa's house to talk about poetry. There they meet Nick, Melissa's husband, and then they share a lunch where Melissa and Bobbi have a great time. And Frances and Nick are there like a couple of flower vases, really awkward. Then while these two ladies talk outside, all light and rainbow. Frances and Nick hang out inside, and finally Frances is left to attend a play in which Nick is performing. Later that day, there was Bobbi talking about how fascinating Melissa is and how boring Nick is, and about how that marriage doesn't sit well with anyone.
Do you have a crush on her?
Obviously, I have a crush on her.
After hanging out with Bobbi, as an understanding and not very jealous best friend, Frances goes to work and then to Nick's play. She starts exchanging messages with him that same night. The weekend was the girls reciting poetry at the same bar where they met Melissa, but now Nick goes too. Then the four of them go for a drink, but immediately Bobbi and Melissa leave and these two are left alone again. Days later, the girls are invited to a meeting at Melissa's house because as Frances is a poet, so she meets more people in the literary circuits. But in the end, she felt she didn't really fit in and leaves, where she just happens to run into Nick. And between flirting here and flirting there, they end up kissing in the upstairs bedrooms. And then she goes downstairs to continue being jealous of Bobbi and Melissa, the usual. In the end, she gets bored and decides to leave. She even goes to visit her parents in another city, so far away she goes. I'm your drama queen tonight. But then she comes back, just in time for the party gossip. It turns out that Bobbi and Melissa kissed. And on top of that, the next day they attend a literary event for Melissa, who is right there with her husband Nick.
She is so hot.
There they chat a bit and say goodbye, the girls on one side and the couple on the other, and nothing happened here. But the next day Frances is going out with Nick. They go to see each other right at Nick and Melissa's house. But not for that. Good old Frances tells Nick that she's not a homewrecker and she's not going to do that. But then Nick tells her that they have an open relationship and that they've had a bunch of affairs each, and well, house alone, them alone, one thing leads to another. Later that day, Frances was with Bobbi, and Bobbi was just laughing about how boring and a bad actor Nick is, that the only good thing he has is Melissa. Finally, Frances gets all bothered. So much so that in the end, Bobbi realizes that she's having an affair with Nick.
Are you jealous?
Maybe she is jealous, but they don't talk about it anymore, and meanwhile Frances keeps dating Nick. One day they talk about old flames.
Entire romantic history is just Bobbi.
Good old Frances had only dated Bobbi, and since they broke up she has been alone while she sees Bobbi flirting here and there, poor thing. Then the affair with Nick ends because he surprisingly tells her that he is leaving to Croatia, and he leaves. And on top of that, she ends up fighting with Bobbi because of the whole thing with Nick, all bad. Although after a while Frances apologizes and they make up, so it's all good more or less. Bobbi still has her affair with Melissa, and speaking of Melissa, she goes on vacation to Croatia and invites the girls to go with her, very convenient. And there they are, out and about in Croatia at Melissa's house with Melissa's friends, with Melissa's husband, with Melissa's re-engaged Bobbi. But it's not all bad. At least Melissa introduces Frances to more people in the literary circle, like her editor, who really liked one of Frances's poems, a poem that Melissa herself is going to include in her book. And while there, she hooks up with Nick again, and Bobbi discovers her. And so the vacations in Croatia come to an end, the girls return to Dublin, and everything is still quite tense again, and what is still to come. Frances goes to visit her mother, and while there she starts to feel sick. She quickly goes to the hospital where she is told to relax. It just looks like she's pregnant. But after the tests, it turns out she's not. The girls get together to talk, and Frances apologizes again, and Bobbi tells her that she's not upset because she's dating Nick. She's upset because he didn't tell her. But the truth is that problem has nothing to do with Nick.
Imagine you at the center.
Bobbi makes it clear to her that that's not going to happen and sets her firmly in the friend zone. And after that, they're buddies again, and not only that. Bobbi's parents are getting divorced, so she wants to move out, and Frances offers her a spare room, so now they're best friends, ex and roommates. Yeah, good idea, dear Frances. And they are having a blast. Giggles here, glasses of wine there, all good, and since that thing with Bobbi is no longer going, she starts dating Nick more seriously. As serious as she can get with a married man. One day, while she was with Bobbi at the bookstore, they meet Melissa and go out for coffee with her, who very kindly invites them to her book launch. That night when they return home, Bobbi says to her, "Look, pretty girl, stop making out with my crush's husband, that's not right." So Frances first thinks to herself, oh, but look how hypocritical, but then she thinks to herself if being with Nick is a bad idea. But after thinking it over, decides to stay with Nick. Well, that's not the point now, because the launch of Melissa's book has arrived and the girls are invited. And there they see Nick and Melissa very romantic. And on top of that, Bobbi comes home that night with a girl. The next day, the girls were with their friend Philip, who is there in the middle of accusations here and there that she has a secret boyfriend, that the other brings friends to the house. Yeah, very uncomfortable, and what is also uncomfortable is everything with Nick. It's all tense. At the end, Frances tells him that she is in love with him and that she can't keep doing that, because he is married. And she leaves there with her poor little heart doubly broken. The good thing is that all that drama leaves her inspired to write, and she writes a poem about her story with Bobbi. This comes out very well because the next day she meets with Melissa's editor, who asks her to read some of her work, and she sends it to her. On the other hand, she goes around feeling bad. One day she faints, but luckily Bobbi helps her. She wanted to take her to the hospital, but Frances won't even let her, so they go home, where Bobbi keeps helping her to take a bath. But no sexy, with care and love. And then Bobbi calls Nick and says, "Look, come and fix things." He goes and tells Frances that he loves her and that he told his wife everything. But he's not going to leave her or anything, he just told her. But anyway, these two make up. The next day, Frances goes to see Melissa, who tells her in a passive-aggressive way that she's fine with it, but that she hates her. And to show that everything is fine, Melissa organizes a dinner for the four of them with a game night included. She even gives Frances some writing advice. It's all very weird. And in other news, Frances's father has stopped sending her money, so she is broke and has continued to feel bad, so she goes to the hospital and waits for the results. But it's not all bad. The editor loved the poem and they're going to publish it in a magazine. She's going to get paid and everything. She's too happy. One night the girls go out for drinks with their friends. At the end they end up having a heart-to-heart talk and kiss. But then Bobbi pretends like nothing happened. And well, finally comes the day to go to the hospital for the results. Fortunately, she is not pregnant. Unfortunately, she has endometriosis, a very rare disease of the uterus. A very rare disease of the uterus that causes pain, bleeding, and fertility problems, poor Frances. And it's not the only thing that is wrong with her. They have published Frances's poem. Bobbi has seen it and is furious. First, because she didn't know the poem was about her, and second, because she didn't like what Frances wrote about her. So much so that she tells her they can't be friends anymore. And with everything going wrong, Frances also decides to break up with Nick, and there she is, all alone, all by herself, which makes her reflect a lot. In the end, she writes to Bobbi to apologize for everything, for how she handled their breakup, for what she wrote, for everything. And she tells her that she loves her, that she has always loved her. After that, Bobbi calls her, and they make up. All good, I think, and that afternoon, Bobbi goes to see her.
I missed you.
And they get back together. Of course they get back together, that being friends with her ex-girlfriend. And there they are, happy and content. One day while doing her Christmas shopping, Frances gets a call from Nick telling her that he loves her and misses her.
Come and get me.
That makes no sense. No sense at all. And that's how this story ends. Frances is dating Bobbi, but she has told Nick to go find her. Anyway, see you in the next video. Bye.